Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another segment for NDI November. This is our 6th year of doing NDI November. Earlier this morning, we were joined by Miguel, who is the head of NDI, and we got a kind of state of what NDI is and everything that's going on, and some teases for what's coming out in the future of NDI. Our show today, right now, actually, is going to be an NDI primer. This is going to be an introduction to NDI. So as Gary alluded to earlier, if you don't know what NDI is, this is the show to be tuned into. And as you can see to my right here, actually left, we're being joined by Paul Richards. Now, Paul Richards is the author of the Unofficial Guide to NDI, which is a book that I have right here. And when I started working here, this was the first book that I read. Got me into a really good place with NDI. So Paul, thank you for writing this book, and thank you for joining us today. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, everyone. My name's Paul Richards. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at PTZOptics. I'm also very involved in the streaming world, and I'm part of the Stream Geeks here in our office in Pennsylvania. I've been very involved with NDI for a long time, and my career kind of started when SDI kind of started to fade away, and NDI was new and interesting. And so I got to see that transition from baseband video to IP video, and it's kind of what I grew up on, if you could say that. I really have been using Power over Ethernet and NDI together to deploy PTZ cameras and IP video systems. And I've just been such a big fan of watching NDI improve over the years. I can't believe we're on version 6 now. What an incredible time to be part of video production.
I could not agree more. So again, we're talking about high level, what is NDI? NDI stands for Network Device Interface, and in its simplest term, as to Paul alluding to it, it's putting your video devices on the network. Now, this can be either a local network or on the wide area network as well, with things like NDI Bridge. So NDI, in its simplest term, is putting devices on the network. I wanted to talk about some of the advantages of NDI, and the first one is no physical limitations. Paul just mentioned, the transition from SDI and HDMI to these IP workflows, and one of the benefits of NDI is simply once that video is on your network, there are it's not SDI, it's not point to point. You can have it be on the network and go to a ton of different devices on that local network. And just like SDI, you can run these cables very long. When you're looking at like an HDMI video signal, typically you're looking at like 25 to 30 feet, and anything above that in terms of cable length, you have to really look into getting either an HDMI extender or these gold-plated HDMI cables. But again, with NDI, because you're putting it on the network, you can run an Ethernet cable a couple hundred feet without having to worry about anything. And then all you need to do, if you did want to go further than that, is just putting a network switch on, to daisy chain further than that. And one thing that I wanted to have Paul allude to a little bit here is the network routing independence, being able to share video across your entire network. Can you talk about that a little bit, Paul?
Yeah, and networking is something that a lot of IT people, learn about, right? And it's something that might seem a little foreign to people who are just getting into video, because video traditionally, as James mentioned, HDMI is plug and play, USB plug and play, but suddenly when you're plugging cameras into the network, you are using computers and hardware to connect over the network, which is good. And what that means is one camera can be connected to the network, and you could have a camera operator pulling it up on their computer. You could have a video production switcher pulling it up on that system. And so suddenly one camera can be used in multiple locations. And it's bidirectional. So that means you can send audio and video, but you can also send it backwards. So the camera's sending audio and video, but then you can send back to the camera, hey, I want you to zoom in. Hey, I want you to pan, tilt, and zoom. I want you to call a preset. So it's bi-directional, whereas with SDI and HDMI, the video just goes one way. And so the flexibility that that opens up, having you the ability to share with multiple people, any web browser can simply open up the IP address of a camera. It really makes, it's incredible after seeing it play out after so many years, how if it's easier, and it's more effective and more affordable, everyone's going to want that because it saves money, it saves time, and it makes things that weren't possible possible. When I go out and set up football games and rugby games, and I'm going out to stream a volleyball game tomorrow, some of these cameras are 100, 150 feet away. SDI kind of works, but then you still have to do a power cable, right? You can't do power over SDI. HDMI cables and extenders, it's just a mess. But with one single Ethernet cable, if I can just, I have it on a reel, and I can just reel it out 150, 200 feet, it powers the camera, it controls the camera, and it does my NDI video. It's so much easier. It's so much more affordable. That's why it's so popular.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. You kind of touched upon my last two bullet points there too. It's extremely cost effective. You know, a standard 1 gig network, especially now with NDI HX3, you can have, you know, 8 or so cameras on a standard 1 gig network and not have to really worry about hitting bandwidth limitations. And there are a lot of tools that the NDI team, you know, allow the NDI Tools is a free suite of tools that you can get from NDI's website, and we're going to talk about some of those NDI tools later in this as well. And then, like Paul said, it's one cable that is connected to your camera. You're getting power to the camera. You can send control to the camera, and then you can send that video feed from the camera to any destination on your network. So all of these are huge advantages of getting into an NDI workflow if you're not already in there. There are also a ton of different devices, not just PTZ cameras, that are utilizing NDI. And we're going to go through some of these and break them down, starting off with conference calls. What we're doing right now, we are utilizing NDI in order to make this show happen. We are currently using Microsoft Teams to do this call, and Teams has the ability to extract the video feed, all of your guests' video feeds, and have them show up as sources on your network. So that's how we're able to bring Paul into our show right now. But at the same time, you can use one of the NDI's tools, NDI Webcam, and you can make your webcam feed look like this production. So what we're doing right now, alluding to that a little bit more, is we are using NDI Webcam to capture this feed that you're seeing right now, and we are sending that feed to Paul so he can see when he's on screen, he can see what slide we're on, and it just looks more professional. So if you were doing a Zoom or Teams conference call inside your company or doing a community outreach program, you can have, you know, very professional looking conference calls.
Yeah. No, I agree. And the world of video has emerged so much. You know, there's live streaming, there's video production, there's conference calls, there's webinars, and we're all trying to find ways to make them more engaging, maybe add a few more different angles and viewpoints to keep people's attention and show that off the things that we want to present to the world. And so the easier we can make it, the more capable we can become at setting up multiple cameras and managing them and controlling them and connecting them, whether it's just for a live stream to YouTube or whether it's a private webinar on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Those are the types of things that are really important.
Couldn't agree more, Paul. And you alluded to controlling your PTZ cameras. And now I kind of want to get into talking about some production elements that are available on the market. And one of the ways that you can control your camera is actually through whatever switching software or program or hardware you are utilizing. And there are a bunch of different options on the market. We here with NDI November, we are using a VizRT TriCaster, and we are able to control all of our PTZ cameras. We're able to be able to do all of our switching, bring in our guests, put the video back onto our local network from my confidence monitor, and all of this is being controlled from our TriCaster. But there are some other options that are available on the market as well. vMix and OBS are options. There's also Wirecast. We have our own turnkey production system called the Liberty X that is certified for Wirecast, and TriCaster Mini S, which is their software solution. Epiphan makes their Pearl systems as well, which are great, and we're going to be talking with Epiphan next week, so definitely stick around for that. But then there's also, very friendly, cost-effective solutions like the YOLO Box. Both the YOLO Box Ultra and the YOLO Box Extreme allow for you to have NDI sources as inputs and also outputs, but even have beta options, programs where you can actually do PTZ control directly from the YOLO Box as well. So there are a lot of things that you can do with a production system, and switching is one of those. Controlling a PTZ camera is one of those. Now, we keep talking about PTZ cameras, and Paul, why would we want to not just get a PTZ camera, but why would we want to get a PTZ camera with NDI?
Well, that's a great question. Before NDI, PTZOptics cameras, and I have a couple here, you can see that, there's HDMI, there's obviously SDI, USB, there's a lot of options for connectivity, but there's really only one connection, which would be the Ethernet connection that can actually power it, control it, and provide video all in one simple solution. And that is, if you're using NDI. So NDI is integrated into so many solutions. And they also, as you alluded to, have the NDI tools. So when you start to use video and you're using Zoom maybe one day and using Microsoft Teams the next, and then you want to use OBS maybe, and you're going to do some streaming and recording, a lot of the video people that I talk to, it's project after project, right? Always kind of tweaking and changing and doing different things for different use cases. NDI truly is one of the most flexible solutions. So once your video is on the network, once your PTZ camera is plugged into an Ethernet connection, now you can simply log into the camera from your smartphone, right? You can log into it from your web browser. You can connect to it directly from probably the software that you're using, whether it be OBS or vMix or Wirecast, right? There are NDI tools that can take the NDI feed and make it show up as a virtual webcam in Microsoft Teams or Zoom. So without having to worry about HDMI and USB and capture cards and all of these things, suddenly you've got one solution that really is flexible enough to work with anything. And I think ultimately that's why the user base just keeps growing and growing, because it's so flexible. Technology is always changing, and NDI seems to be the easiest, most flexible way to get the video into systems these days.
I could not agree more. And just being able to do this all through a single cable for your power, for your video, for your control, and then not just, again, bringing that feed directly into whatever switching software you're using, but let's say that you want to have a close-up if you're in a house of worship and you want to have a single camera close-up, on some video walls behind the pastor or whoever is leading that congregation. You have that ability too, because it's just simply on the network. It's not just going right to your production system. Now, another way, Paul mentioned a bunch of different ways that you can control these PTZ cameras. There are web GUIs, there are switching software, there's also switching software, and there are web GUIs, but there are also dedicated PTZ controllers. Can you talk a little bit, mostly because we are big fans of the SuperJoy here as well, can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits of maybe not using the switching software, the web GUI to control a PTZ camera, but instead using a joystick controller?
Yeah, so one of the joystick controllers that is really one of the most popular on the market is the PTZOptics Super Joy. And this joystick actually has integrated NDI into it, which I'll talk about in a moment here. But one of the things that you can do today is you can almost for free use vMix or Wirecast or OBS and use your keyboard and mouse to control the camera, which is great. But as you start to get more complicated video production and you need to make fast adjustments in sports and tracking and different things, having a physical joystick is really important, especially when you want to get slow speeds and you want to go slowly and kind of ramp up to a faster speed. Also, as you start to try to control multiple cameras. So this has 6 hot button keys here. It also supports custom buttons, which are really cool. What those do is it allows you to have one button to press that can move 4 cameras or 6 cameras, right? So you can change scenes really easily. And it allows that one-man band or small teams to be a lot more effective with their robotic cameras by allowing them to have a joystick controller. Now, this controller does have NDI built in. And so what that means is that you don't need to have a whole bunch of networking capabilities and know what the IP addresses is for all of your cameras. It'll search the network. And one of the great things that we didn't talk about yet with NDI is discoverability.
Mm-hmm.
So you plug an NDI camera into your network and it's going to be discoverable. And that's just every NDI source on your network. If you're adding 2 cameras and 3 joysticks and 5 decoders, it's all discoverable on your network. And so you can use a joystick like this, plug it in, search for every NDI camera on your network, add them right in. And from a setup and management perspective, now you have a professional controller to control all your PTZ cameras without having to clutter up or get in the way of your software and video production interface.
Yeah, and one of the things that you alluded to is, it's great to have presets and being able to use your mouse and keyboard, but the closest way that you can make it look like that camera is moving as naturally as possible is by having a physical joystick and, like you said, being able to finely adjust whether you're zooming in or if you're doing pan or tilt or maybe even both at the same time. So PTZ controllers are definitely something that you want to look into if you were going to be doing live camera movements, and especially if you're going to be using multiple cameras in your production. Now, we alluded to a couple different examples of where NDI is being used in these workflows, and I just want to say that NDI can be used in pretty much any application. It can be used in houses of worship, event streaming, broadcast, business and corporate events. We talked about NDI webcam being utilized in a lot of conference rooms, education, sports, esports. We'll talk a little bit about NDI screen capture, which is another NDI tool, being able to very easily get and capture your gameplay, and it's on the network. Esports, NDI is huge in that. Government workflows, healthcare, even in radio situations, a lot of radio stations are starting to record and put video out as well as their audio. And then DJ and music productions, all of these, verticals are great places that you can use NDI. And I'm sure that there are some verticals that I have not even listed on here where NDI is absolutely being used.
Yeah, I mean, music productions, entertainment, the list kind of goes on and on. Everyone is using video and they want to put in effective systems with multiple camera angles and be able to use, regular computers. That's one of the crazy things about NDI is we're talking about using regular networking.
About some of the tools that we're using to do this production right now.
Sure. So NDI Tools is a free download you can get from NDI, and it comes with a variety of tools. And they're really great for, my favorite tool, there's several, but my favorite tool is NDI Studio Monitor. And what it does is you just open it up, it finds every single NDI device on your network, it allows you to view them, and it allows you to control them. So if it's a PTZOptics camera, you can from anywhere on your network, control that camera. You can zoom it in, pan, tilt it. You can even plug in a USB Xbox controller and start to control cameras that are remote to you. So NDI Studio Monitor is a great one, but there are a host of other tools. A new one that just came out is NDI Bridge. And what that allows you to do is actually set up NDI Bridge on your local area network and somewhere else across the public internet, and send and receive NDI video sources across the public internet. So there's a lot of NDI tools available today. One that I'm using right now is called NDI Webcam. And what that does is it takes an NDI video feed on your network and it turns it into a virtual webcam, which I am using in Microsoft Teams right now. So there's a lot of tools out there for basically adapting IP video to the real world. And another example of that would be like an NDI decoder, right? So you can take NDI and output it via HDMI. So you could plug it into a television or into a traditional video switcher.
No, absolutely. You hit the ones that I wanted to talk about. NDI
Ah,
Studio Monitor is probably our favorite as well. We like to use NDI Studio Monitor. You know, we're constantly testing out new equipment and playing with the new equipment. And like you said, you open up Studio Monitor, it will show you all of your cameras or NDI sources that are on your network. And not only can you see them, but you can interact with them. You can, there's a virtual joystick that you can see on there. You can control the zoom, you can set presets. And one of the cool things too is if you don't know the IP address of your camera, there is a little gear in the bottom right of this as well. So as long as you have that camera open and viewed in NDI Studio Monitor, that will take you directly to the device's web GUI, which is a great feature if you don't know the IP address of your camera. And NDI Studio Monitor is used in a ton of different applications. Another thing that we're using right now is NDI Screen Capture. And so the way that we're using NDI Screen Capture, I mentioned it with esports. What it does is it just captures whatever's on your screen and makes that a source on your network. So what we're doing right now is I'm running this laptop right now, and I have the PowerPoint presentation on here. And then I'm using NDI Screen Capture to capture this PowerPoint presentation and putting it on to the network. Now that's showing up as one of the sources in our TriCaster, and then we are able to manipulate that source to make it full screen, to put it in a box above Paul, for example. And there are tons of different things that you can do once that video source is on your network. And it doesn't just have to be used for video calls like this. It can be used for education. It can be used for esports and tons of different applications. And the last NDI tool that I want to talk about, which Paul already mentioned, is NDI Webcam. Being able to take a high quality master program feed and be able to send it back to whatever web conferencing you are using without having to do anything extra. Again, NDI Tools is completely free to download and use to take your productions to the next level. And one thing that I don't think that we mentioned is when you download NDI Tools, if you hover your mouse over any of the applications, they will actually offer you like a mini slideshow of what the tool is and how to use it. And again, it's free, so there is no reason to not literally download this right now and just start playing with NDI tools.
it's totally free. Works right away.
Exactly. Paul, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We're not going to completely say goodbye because we will have you back at the end of our next segment here. But what we're going to do right now is we are going to play a little bit of a commercial for PTZOptics. And then when we come out of that commercial, we will be joined by Jon Roberts from PTZOptics to talk about some of the cameras that we already have and the SuperJoy controller. So Paul, this is bye for now. We'll see you in a few minutes.
See you soon.
All right.
Experience the future of video production with PTZOptics. Enjoy fluid camera robotics, unparalleled connectivity options, free tools, and firmware updates, all backed by award-winning US-based support and robust warranties, perfect for any production. PTZOptics cameras feature advanced robotics and high-quality optics, including broadcast standard lenses and up to 30x zoom with rapid autofocus.
Huge thanks for Paul talking about NDI in general, but now we kind of want to focus in on specifically PTZOptics. So now we have from PTZOptics, Jon Roberts joining us. Jon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, James. Thanks for inviting us out today. I'm happy to talk cameras as always, PTZ and fixed frame, and of course controllers. Never forget the controllers. Thanks for having me, James. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's always good talking to Paul. It's always good talking to you. So why don't you take a second here, introduce yourself to our audience, and introduce PTZOptics.
Yeah, of course. So I've been with PTZOptics for a little over 2 years now. I previously worked at Vimeo, where I helped build their live platform up from the ground. We started out at the live stream platform. They got acquired by Vimeo, and then I helped shepherd Vimeo Live on their new service. So that was a lot about dealing on the support end, dealing with users that are building up complex live workflows. And that kind of led me to PTZ cameras, where I found PTZOptics, and I've been working them for over 2 years now. They've been a great family-run company. I'm the customer success manager here at PTZOptics. So if you have questions about our cameras or questions about NDI or any sort of workflow or controller, anything at all, feel free to reach out at me, and I'll have a little book me at the end where you can scan and set up a time for me. So great to be here, James. Happy to talk about NDI with you and PTZOptics cameras.
That's great. Before we get into this PowerPoint, I do want to give a shout out to PTZOptics team. You mentioned your customer support. PTZOptics customer support is fantastic, and I highly recommend that if you have any questions about anything that we go over today, reach out to them, reach out to us, and we will get you situated. Okay, so we're talking about NDI and how it makes things really easy because it's a single cable. And I think that this slide here shows that pretty well. 2015, before NDI, you have a ton of cables everywhere for your power, for your video, for your control. And then you have, like Paul said, matrices to do your video routing. You want to explain this one over here, the 2025, how easy it is?
Yeah, I wanted to use this. This is a great image that NewTek actually made for Halloween. It was like a spooky boo, remember the past,
Yeah.
and remember dealing with SDI cables and all the wiring and how just complicated it gets. So now in 2025, just as Paul was mentioning, a single cable, one cable to rule them all is what I like to say. With a single Ethernet cable, you can power our cameras and connect them and send that video really anywhere because of NDI. So it's really just making things easier than ever before. And that's kind of leads us to PTZOptics. And some of you in the past have maybe used our older cameras. We've been around for 10 years now making PTZ cameras, and we have fixed frame cameras and camera controllers as well. And in the past, you may have been used to, buying a camera that was specifically only for SDI or only for HDMI. And our goal really at PTZOptics is to make PTZ control easier and shareable as possible, right? So part of that is giving NDI in every camera. So NDI is built into all of our cameras. It's not an add-on. You don't need to buy an additional license for NDI. So if you buy our latest cameras, which I'll go into, you can see kind of at the top there, we have a studio series for fixed frame cameras, and we have PTZ cameras as well as our SuperJoy controller. So you can see a little bit more here on this slide where we kind of go into some of the various hardware that we have. So both the PTZ cameras, we have a 1080p version and a 4K version. Same goes with our fixed frame cameras, the Studio series. We have a 1080p version called the Studio SE and the Studio 4K, which is our 4K version. So we have the Move series, as I just mentioned. So the Move series, they're great cameras. We have both 4K with the Move 4K and 1080p with the Move SE. All of our cameras come in either gray or white, and all of them have the option for optical zoom 12x, 20x, or 30x. So you can see, as it shows on the slide there, there's mention of PoE. That is the power of plugging in one Ethernet cable to power and send video, and then share that video either locally, or if you're using NDI Bridge, or if you're using Hive Studio, a controller of ours, which I'll get into in a little bit. So there's a little bit of differences between the Move SE and the Move 4K, besides just the 4K video quality, obviously. So you have improved low light sensitivity and performance with the Move 4K, but you also have improved auto tracking as well. So we're always open and listening. Is why we have a beta program for PTZOptics. You can join that at ptzoptics.com/beta. And we take all of that feedback in, and then we update and work on our cameras and improve them. So recently, we just added a bunch of new auto tracking features and enhancements for the Move 4K. So I highly recommend updating that firmware as always and trying out the new auto tracking options. But of course, we have a slightly cheaper version for the Move SE, where you can, of course, get auto tracking, but at a slightly lower price. So that makes it a little bit easier to have a wide scale deployment of PTZ cameras with the Move SE.
No, absolutely. And I want to throw in a couple plugs here. You mentioned not only just like maybe previous cameras had just SDI or just HDMI. PTZOptics is actually taking it a step further. And not only are they giving you SDI and HDMI, but you're actually getting NDI as well. So whatever workflow you are utilizing, PTZOptics has a solution for you. And I also want to just give a little bit more of a plug. Here in our studio, we are using PTZOptics Move 4Ks. We're big fans of the PTZOptics cameras, and this is just proof of concept. These are great cameras to work with, so absolutely. And we have the Studio Series cameras as well, and we actually just recently installed, we have a top-down camera here as well, which is the Studio 4K. So small world.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And I'm glad you brought up all the different outputs, right? Because simultaneous outputs, I think, is so important. You have the option for NDI, you can share that, you can get it across your network, or now globally beyond your local network. But the ability to also have the backup for whether you're using USB, whether you're using HDMI or SDI, it's incredibly important to have multiple options to output your video. It's really essential, right? Because I'm using a USB connected Studio 4K camera right in front of me now, but I could also then bring that video over NDI into my phone, or I can send it to another producer locally that can bring in that video feed. So we love the option of just giving you everything. You buy one camera, you don't have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, oh, how do I now integrate HDMI into this? No. We're going to give you everything so you have it in one package. And that goes across the board for both our PTZ cameras and our Studio Series cameras. So we found that there was a huge need for mixing and matching both fixed frame cameras and our PTZ cameras, what we're so well known for. And that's why we made the Studio Series. So they have the same image sensors as our Move SE and our Move 4K, the PTZ cameras. And this allows us to really easily color match these cameras, so you can kind of mix and match. As James mentioned, using them as a top-down camera for either a classroom or a lecture space or a presentation space, even at the top of a podium, or above a podium, I should say. So these cameras come in both gray and white, just like our PTZ cameras, and they have a 12x and 20x optical zoom. And the one thing that really kind of jumps it up for the 4K version is that we have what we call super zoom, which not only adds ePTZ, so you can electronically zoom around your environment, even though it's not a PTZ camera. And then it also adds super zoom, which is doubling your zoom distance. So if you have a 20x camera, a Move 4K, or a Studio 4K in particular, you can actually double your zoom size with the mixture of digital and optical zoom, taking you up to 40x zoom. And all of our cameras are also Hive linked, which I have to mention as well.
Oh, yeah. And we will definitely be talking about Hive in just a minute here. I think that's a great thing to mention, that if you are outputting your video at 1080, you can super zoom into these and get some really crazy zoom lengths. 40x zoom out of a camera that is, this big, that's very, very impressive. And I think the other thing that is great that you mentioned is it's the same lenses, same sensors as the PTZ cameras. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm talking to customers, we used to talk about these hybrid workflows where it would be some baseband, some NDI, but now because you have NDI on all of these cameras, when I'm more so talking about hybrid workflows, I'm more so thinking a mixture of PTZs and fixed cameras as the hybrid, mixing and matching both fixed cameras with PTZ cameras. And PTZOptics makes it super easy to do that. And we'll talk about some bundles that are available in a minute here too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
John, once these cameras are on the network, how do I control these cameras?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to control the cameras. You mentioned our web interface, so all of our cameras, you can use a web interface. You just type in the IP address of your camera. We may actually make it even easier. Instead of trying to figure out an IP address, you can just type in ptzoptics.local. It'll search your network for one PTZ camera or a studio camera, and then you're able to immediately bring that camera up and see it and control it. But we also have great hardware options as well, like the SuperJoy. So the SuperJoy is incredible because not only can you control 255 different cameras, but you can also control 255 presets for individual cameras as well. So this gives you a lot of university and compatibility with various PTZ cameras as well. So this isn't just limited to PTZOptics. We are passionate about giving everyone control options. It's why for our software and for things like the SuperJoy, we want to make sure that you can use any PTZ camera really on the market. There's a certain brand out there that I won't say that you can't use it, but every other brand of PTZ cameras you can use with the SuperJoy. So there's a lot of universality with the SuperJoy. You can use beyond NDI, Visco or IP, and OnVIF for control. So there's a lot that you can get out of with a SuperJoy. And it even has its own web interface where you can customize those buttons. You can even customize the little joystick button on top, which has become really popular. So if you want to easily turn on automation with a controller, that's the SuperJoy can do that right for you, right from the controller.
One thing that I want to mention on the SuperJoy is one of my favorite features is the basic mode, being able to, if you we're talking about making the production as easy as it can be, and you don't want to have to worry about if you're putting these cameras and controllers into like a house of worship where there's volunteers, or a sporting event where potentially students are going to be controlling things. PTZOptics has the basic mode, which allows you to kind of lock out some of the settings that could interfere, but allow you to still be able to control your presets, pull up your camera feeds, and be able to move them without, changing the color accidentally or things like that. So I think that's something that's absolutely worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Basic mode, it'll lock it down and it'll make it very easy to know what buttons you can use and can't use because they'll be highlighted and glowing. So yeah, I love that you mentioned that because that makes it so easy to just kind of jump in and have a Sunday volunteer start controlling your cameras right away.
Absolutely. And we kind of alluded to this already, but PTZOptics has a bunch of bundles that are available. Can you kind of walk us through the bundles that are available from PTZOptics?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started out originally, we knew people want to save a little bit of dough and bundle in 3 cameras. So that's where we started with the producer bundle. So you can either get a 4K version of that, which includes 3 Move 4Ks, or a 1080p version, which has the Move SCs. So this includes 3 PTZ cameras. They're 20x cameras. We thought that was a good middle ground to give people for a bundle. They've been very popular and includes that SuperJoy controller that we've been talking about. And then we also kind of expanded because we know people want to mix and match, and maybe people don't want to be limited to just 20x cameras. Maybe they only need 12. Maybe they need to have 3 30x PTZ cameras. So that's when we made the Flex Bundle. The Flex Bundle allows you to kind of mix and match your cameras. You can even choose from, we have various other controllers like the Joy G4. We even have a serial controller. So if you want to go a little bit old school and hardwire your cameras, you can do that as well to the SuperJoy. But the Flex Bundle gives you just a lot of different options. So you can buy fixed frame cameras, you can buy PTZ cameras and mix and match with your controller. And then we saw an opportunity for an action bundle, which is including 2 studio 4K cameras and a Move 4K camera, which is 12x, and the studio cameras are 12x as well. So this has been really popular in sports where people just want 3 cameras. They more so need some fixed frame cameras for like a net cam, for the field goal at the end zone. there's a lot of different use cases for this, but it's mainly to focus on where you need more of a fixed frame camera and then one PTZ camera to give you the flexibility for choosing your shots on the fly.
No, absolutely. We talked earlier about the cameras all having HDMI, SDI, USB, and NDI outputs, and the SuperJoy controller has NDI, Visca, bunch of different control protocols. And just like you give your customers the flexibility to choose whatever workflow fits for them, you're doing the same thing with your bundles, not only by giving them 3 different bundles to choose from that are pre-made, but then also giving them the flexibility to make their own bundle where they can mix and match exactly what they need for their workflow. Maybe you want to have one Move 4K for your hero shot and a couple Move SEs as your close-up shots that don't necessarily need to be 4K, but you still want to be able to pan and tilt them. So you can mix and match with the flex bundles. And I think that's just great that PTZOptics offers those kind of solutions to their customers.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because that happens a lot where people, they're like 1080p is fine, and we're never going to force you and say you need to go to 4K. There's obviously benefits of doing that, but I think what you highlighted is perfectly is with one Move 4K, you get the better image sensor, obviously, and then you also get improved auto tracking performance. So you could buy one of those, the rest can be 1080. You can even keep your Move 4K at 1080p, but then you get those advantages like the amazing auto tracking where you can kind of customize the auto tracking exactly how you want. You can dynamically zoom in and out even while you're auto tracking. So a lot of those benefits aren't in that Move SE. So that's where that flexibility comes in. You're exactly right.
No, and I think that is great. Now, we mentioned this earlier as well, Hive Studio. Jon, tell us all about Hive Studio.
Yeah, so Hive Studio is the remote camera control platform. So it mixes the ability to record, monitor your video sources, and then share that control with anyone and anywhere. So what this is a platform that allows you to control not only PTZOptics cameras, but over 400 different PTZ brands and cameras currently are supported. So I would highly recommend checking out PTZOptics Hive at ptzoptics.com/Hive. You can actually sign up for free, and you can even use one camera for free forever. So the way Hive Studio works is that you can bring in that one camera forever for free. We're not going to charge you as long as you're using it locally. And then we have a series of different plans depending on how many sources you need in Hive Studio. So this allows you to easily add your video inputs over NDI. You can even bring them in via RTSP. NDI is going to give you higher quality. It's going to give you a little bit better latency as well in Hive Studio. And then what you're able to do is just like a Google Doc or a Google Drive, you can just click one button, enter in someone's email address, and it'll send them a link. And without even downloading anything, they can just open up their browser with that link, and it'll allow them to jump into Hive Studio and start controlling their cameras or your cameras really from anywhere. So it creates an awesome opportunity to not only have advanced control remotely now, but also the ability to share that control really, really instantly. So this is really, really exciting. It works on both Windows and Mac. It's now giving us the chance to mix in multiple camera brands, much just like I said with the SuperJoy brand agnostic hardware controller. And now Hive Studio, we have the brand agnostic software controller. So this is going to give you a lot of flexibility, and it's been really exciting to see so many people join the platform in the first 6 months. And yeah, it starts at only $25 a month, and you'll get a whole lot out of it. We're constantly updating and listening to user feedback.
No, absolutely. We've played with Hive Studio, and sometimes we'll open up our Hive on our end, and we'll tag into your studio and start moving some of your cameras to see what's going on in the PTZOptics studio. So yeah, Hive Studio is just fantastic. I think another application of Hive Studio is if you get a Hive linked camera and you send that camera to a guest who is going to be joining your show and they know nothing about cameras, you say, hey, just connect us to the internet. I'll take it from there, because then you can control that camera from anywhere in the world. So Hive Studio is a great application. And like you said, it's free to try it. So there's no harm. If you have a PTZ camera, there's a very high chance that Hive is already able to work with it, and you can try it out and then fall in love with it and purchase the ability to control more cameras.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You might be limited on just one, but some people out there, hey, you want a new control option, you want to be able to plug in an Xbox controller or use your hand on a mouse to control your cameras. That's really what Hive Studio is going to allow you to do. And I'm glad you mentioned the Hive linked as well. So all of our cameras are currently Hive linked. We have a beta firmware out there that you can download if you're a beta member of ours. And what this allows you to do basically is you no longer need a bridge or a computer locally running connected to Hive Studio. So what it'll do is allow your cameras to run Hive Studio directly. So that way, just like James said, you can just plug in that camera, give it about a minute or less, and it'll populate in your studio and you'll be able to control that camera.
That is fantastic. Um, I want to say thank you to Jon for joining us to talk about PTZOptics cameras and how they fit in literally every single workflow and how they are kind of pushing the boundaries when it comes to AV over IP in general. So thank you so much, Jon, for joining us. I believe this is the QR code that you mentioned at the top of the show. If you do have questions, absolutely reach out to Jon. And we will make sure that everything is hunky-dory for your workflow.
Yes, thank you, James. Appreciate that so much. You can book a meeting on that QR code. It'll take you right to my Calendly. So if you want to talk one-on-one with me, you can do that by scanning that code there, or just reaching out to me directly via email at jon.roberts@PTZOptics. I'm the customer success manager here, so I want to make sure you guys are successful on
Yep.
any sort of workflow, whether it's NDI all the way to USB-C. I'm here to help you out.
Okay. It looks like we have one question come in, and can you expand on how Hive works with NDI?
Yeah, sure. So I could share Hive Studio directly to on my screen if you guys want me to show the actual platform.
Absolutely. Let's see if we can get a demo up here. If you
Okay,
turn
no
on your
problem.
screen, this is spur of the moment, so bear with us as we bring that feed into our TriCaster.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll share my screen here with Hive Studio, and I'll show you that you have a couple different options. So you can bring in your video via RTSP, and you can also bring in your
Give
video
us
via
one
NDI.
second, Jon. We're still trying to pull it up. There we go. Now we have your screen share.
So you can see here I'm in the studio. I'm actually not currently in the studio, but I'm controlling these cameras completely remotely now. Looking at 200 milliseconds of latency. In fact, I was even pulling the studio up while Paul was talking, and I could just see how instantaneous he was from the sync. I could see that almost word for word, his sync was matching directly with the Hive Studio. So, and I was watching it live in our actual team view here. So you asked about NDI specifically in Hive Studio. So NDI is an option to bring in any of your cameras. So you have local cameras, so you can see you can bring in like an NDI webcam, for instance. But you can also bring in cameras directly via NDI as well. So there's options for both RTSP or NDI. Let's see here. So once you click on a camera, this one's coming in via RTSP, but you have the option also to select an NDI output as well. So it looks like we have a camera here in a random support office that I'm picking up on our network. So that's kind of the fun discoverability of pulling up any kind of input that's on your local network, especially when you work at a PTZ company. You're always finding random cameras spread all around the office, and gives a good chance to check in on people that you maybe shouldn't be looking in on, but that's the fun of having camera control.
No, absolutely. And just to reemphasize, you're not in that studio. Where are
Yep.
you in comparison to the studio? And showing
Yeah.
how easy it is and how quick it is to move those cameras.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So I'm actually probably about 30 minutes or so away from our studio currently, but I could share this with someone in California. I could share this with someone who's in an entirely different country, all by just sharing one link. So I'm currently an admin for that studio. The way Hive works is that there's a series of different role types that you can add. So I could be an admin. I could simply just be a viewer who can see all the sources that are listed on the studio. Or if you want to just have the ability to have control, you can add someone as a producer so they have control over all of your video sources inside of Hive Studio. So we want to make it really flexible and easy. And yeah, like I said, if you guys have any questions at all, you can scan that QR code and book a meeting with me, or you can just reach out to me directly at jon.roberts@PTZOptics.
All right, John. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for talking about PTZOptics cameras. And I think we lost Paul, but tell him that we said thank you for
No
joining us
worries.
as well, not only as PTZOptics, but also as the author of the unofficial guide to NDI. I highly recommend to all of our viewers, check out this book. It's a lot of great information and it's very easy to read. We will have more NDI November content all month long, including our conversation with Roberto Musso, Dr. NDI, tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if you want to learn more about some in-depth NDI, check that video out. We will see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks again, John.
Thank you. See you soon, guys.